third edition of the CEOs Connect by the Canada-Ghana Chamber of Commerce, happening right here at Kempinski Hotel, Gold Coast City.
I welcome all of you to this year CEO Connect. On the program, we are going to have the purpose of gathering, and then some few introduction, and we have the Executive Secretary for Canada-Ghana Chamber of Commerce, Mrs. Edwina Atasunu. Let's welcome with a round of applause, please.
Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I'm happy that you have taken time off your very busy schedules today to be part of CEOs Connect 2023, which is the Chamber's signature event of the year. The CEOs Connect was born out of the desire to bring the heads of SMEs and large corporate companies together to brainstorm, share experiences, network, and discuss the way forward after the effects of the pandemic in 2021. The event also provides an opportunity for participants to meet with government agencies, representatives, and industry players to share strategies, authentic business information, to assist in decision making. The theme for this year's CEOs Connect is financing and growing businesses, and our objective is to use this platform for all our participants to connect with both local and Ghanaian companies who are here purposely to explore the Ghanaian market, to broaden your network base, and as this event is not limited to only chamber members, to acquire accurate information on how to and what to do to raise capital and acquire funding both locally and internationally. Finally, this platform gives you an understanding of government policies and laws relating to doing business in Ghana and in Canada. Now, to achieve these objectives, we have an interactive and engaging session. We will have an exciting panel discussion amidst brief remarks from our guest of honor and special guests. Now, to give the keynote address and to set the tone for today's event is the Honorable Nana Madukwe Isiama Ejei, the Deputy Minister for International Relations of the Ministry of Trade and Industry. She will be supported with brief remarks from our special guest, Her Excellency Martine Moreau, the Canadian High Commissioner to Ghana, and Gilberto Antonio, Senior Advisor to His Excellency, who is standing in for Cynthia. Taking the stage to discuss the theme, financing and growing businesses, and to also share their expertise and experiences will be our very endowed panelists. We have Dr. Farid Arthur. He is the National Coordinator of the National AFTA Coordination Office. Mr. Yofi Grant, the CEO of Ghana Investment Promotion Center. Ms. Abna Amwa, the Managing Director of the Ghana Stock Exchange. Dr. Ifwa Asabia Asari, CEO, Ghana Export Promotion Authority. Nana Jumo Bene, the Managing Director of UMB Bank Ghana Limited. Ni Odoi Yemu, the Executive Director, Reality Capital Management, and the President of the Ghanaian Canadian Chamber of Commerce in Ontario, Canada. And finally, representing Kingsley is Mr. Frederick Amo Atakura, the Head of Value Chain, EcoBank Ghana Limited. I encourage everyone to participate fully by asking questions and by sharing your experiences. Now, our lineup of special guests and panelists, as introduced, clearly shows that this session will be full of information that will take your business to the next level. We believe that CEOs Connect is a great platform for participating companies to find solutions. I'm also very proud to announce that CEOs Connect has gone international. And today, we have 3 Canadian companies participating in the event. We have VitaTree Canada. You can just give us a wave, VitaTree. Can we have a wave from VitaTree? Excellent. Then we have Vetlana Osman Real Estate. Vetlana is here. Thank you. And then we have Reality Capital Management. Thank you so much. Now, to our participating Canadian companies, I say Akwaba, which means welcome. You're welcome to Ghana. I say Akwaba, and I want to briefly highlight why you should invest in Ghana. Ghana is strategically situated to connect you with not only the country itself, but also the wider West African region, especially the economic community of West African states. With a population of about 31 million and a GDP of about $72.84 billion, Ghana has numerous opportunities for companies looking to expand their footprints in the region. These include reliable infrastructure for movement in and around the country, stable power supply for factory production lines, a youthful population, and an educated workforce keen to work with the latest solutions. In summary, Ghana is a green investment destination. So today, if you are here, you are at the right place at the right time. I also wish to acknowledge and also show our appreciation to our sponsors who have made this event possible. We say a big thank you to Dutiless Company Limited, to Syria Mining Company Limited, to Mosfin Ghana Limited, Joe Bays Enterprise, Rayma Systems, and Associates. Thank you so much, our gold sponsors. We are grateful to our silver sponsors. Thank you. One Heart Immigration Consultancy Services and Netters Ghana Limited. We are grateful. And also, we thank our bronze sponsors, Sing Global Travel, DICORP, Sterida Pharmaceutical Limited, Blaynet Services Limited, ADM Africa Resources, Lace Petroleum Limited, Consolidated Shipping Agencies, and Askia Immigration Consultancy Services. Thank you so much for the sponsorship. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, please relax, enjoy the sessions, and by all means, enjoy breakfast. Thank you for your attention.
We have today to give us an opening, a keynote address, an opening remark for this particular program. And this particular person has been a friend, a brother who is so much passionate about things. He grew up in Canada as well. We have Mr. Alexander Norte, the president for Canada-Ghana Chamber of Commerce. Let's welcome Mr. Alexander Norte to come and give us an opening remarks. Please, let's do it for him until he gets here. Let's do it until he gets here.
Your Excellency, Martin Moreau, Canadian High Commissioner, Deputy Minister of Trade, Nanama Dokwa Esiama Ajay, Your Honorable Yufi Grant, Chief Executive of the Ghana Investment Promotion Council, Dr. Efua Asabia Asari, Chief Executive Officer of GEPA, Ghana Export Promotion Authority, Ms. Nasingbe Esonam, Senior Advisor to the AFTA Secretary, Mr. Ni Odoye Yamo, Executive Director of Reality Capital, Canada, Mr. Nana Dwemo Bene, Chief Executive Officer of Universal Merchant Bank, Mr. Kingsley, I think Mr. Kingsley is not with us, but somebody's in his place for EcoBank PLC, Dr. Farid Kwesi Arthur, National Coordinator of AFTA, and last but not least, my distinguished Executive Council members and all chamber members, friends of the media. A special thank you to you all, especially our sponsors and our invited guests. CanCham appreciates you all. The Canada-Ghana Chamber of Commerce has transitioned over the years, especially after COVID-19 pandemic, which ravaged many nations, including families, and caused severe havoc with lockdowns across the globe. There was a need for the Chamber to re-strategize and remarket itself by partnering with media houses, to broaden our exposure and to broadcast our activities to a wider audience. Our in-house presentations allows our members to present their businesses to other members of the Chamber, and our breakfast meetings enables members to broadcast our activities to a wider audience. Our flagship conferences in Canada include PDAC. Hello? Okay. Include PDAC, the largest mining show. The largest mining show in the world is held annually every March. Construct Canada, an annual event covering real estate conferences, which is held in November, allows our member companies to travel to Canada with the hope of meeting suitable partners or suppliers in the area of business. The recently held Global Energy Show and the upcoming World Petroleum Congress in September are events for networking. The Trade Commission is an exhibitor at this year's event, which has already attracted lots of interest, not only from our members, but to those in the petroleum industry, including all its stakeholders and government agencies. Though the pandemic caused a slowdown in activities and Canada's shutdown, membership growth was at a virtual standstill. However, we are happy to report an increase in our membership numbers over the years, especially the last 2 to 3 years, thanks to my efficient team and staff, and thanks to our membership referral program. I'm happy to report that the Chamber has now over 130 members with diverse businesses, both local and international companies, operating in the following sectors: information technology, construction, banking, pharmaceuticals, film and media, mining, lubricant supplies and distribution, electric vehicle manufacturing, solar distribution and installation, freight forwarding and logistics, travel and tourism, oil service companies, including agribusiness sector, and immigration consultancy. The Chamber's quest to boost intra-Africa trade and international trade is ongoing despite the various challenges. According to H.E. Wamkele Mene, Secretary General of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, one of the biggest challenges African continent has is the cost of currency conversion. Up to 5 billion annually is lost. So with the hope of the Pan-African payments systems, we hope that this will alleviate some of the losses. While the continent recovers from the effects of COVID-19, climate change is another force majeure that seeks to interrupt the region's activities. Africa loses 7 to 15 billion a year due to climate change, despite emitting less than 4% of the global emissions. By comparison, industrialized countries like the USA, Canada, China, Japan, and large parts of Western Europe have contributed to 50% of the planet-warming gases over the past 100 years. As a result, African countries see more extreme weather and reoccurring floods. The Sahel region, for example, estimates $400 billion to adapt and mitigate the climate issues, drought, which is due to action of others. Seed Fund for Startups is something which we are also looking at. Seed Fund Digital Africa, launched in 2019, supports digital startups in Africa. Eric Long, founder of the Green Tech Capital, supports Africa digital startups and venture building programs. Tommy Davis, of the Chief Executive Officer of the Digital Bridge Fund, states that Africa tech startups have become a critical driver for our continent's economic recovery as they develop new solutions to age-old problems providing employment to our digitally literate young while helping others mature corporates transform themselves as they go digital. Artificial intelligence can also help in transport logistics. AI can make a difference in optimizing agro-processing and the packaging of goods and commodities. AI can help in development of affordable educational programs. The African Development Bank head Akinwumi Adesina has highlighted youth in agriculture. Last year alone, they spent 300 million to support young people in agriculture sector. Lack of finance to access to machinery and farming instruments, as well as the mercy of global warming and unreasonable droughts. Africa Development Bank Youth Initiative understand that the agriculture is not just a way of life, but a business. According to Mr. Adesina, the agribusiness is a future, so they should make agriculture cool for the youth, that future millionaires and billionaires shall come from agriculture. AFDB are also investing in fourth annual industrial revolution, investing heavily in fiber optic cables to make the speed of internet very fast, with Information Communication Technology Center of Excellence, which is helping to build the next generation of ICT experts for Africa. Working with Korea Africa Tech Corp, like Peace Corp, to bring young people to link with people to develop the Bill Gates and the Mark Zuckerbergs of Africa. It is a blueprint to use to industrialize Africa. Canada is highly supportive of many initiatives in this sector, especially in the northern region. Canada-Africa Network is a global gateway for trade, connecting Canadian organizations desiring to expand their businesses to 54 countries in Africa, desiring to attract investors, export products, services to Canada, etc. FinTech, Agritech, Digitech are the future drivers of the economy. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Alexander Nolte. Ghana's Dance Ensemble, please, can you give us some rendition? Dance ensemble. So with a round of applause, let's welcome Honorable Nana Ama Dokua Esiama Eje, Deputy Minister for International Trade, Ministry of Trade and Industry. Please, let's welcome her. Let's welcome her, please.
The Canadian High Commissioner to Ghana, His Excellency Martin Moreau, the President, Canada-Ghana Chamber of Commerce, Mr. Alexander Norte, the Executive Secretary, Canada-Ghana Chamber of Commerce, Mrs. Edwin Atasono, the Chief Executive Officer, Ghana Investment Promotion Center, Mr. Yofi Grant, the Chief Executive Officer, Ghana Export Promotion Authority, Dr. Ifwa Sabia Asare, the CEO, Universal Merchant Bank, Nana Kwejo Jimo Bene, Head of SME Banking, Ecobank Ghana, please, Mr. Kingsley Adolfo, representative from the AFCFTA Secretariat, Ms. Cynthia E. Nyasingbe Esonam, the Ghana National AFCFTA Coordinator, Dr. Farid Arthur, captains of industry from both Ghana and Canada, distinguished guests, friends from the media, ladies and gentlemen, good morning to us all. Good morning. From where I come from, usually when we say good morning, we do get a response. Indeed, I'm truly delighted to be part of this third edition of the Canada-Ghana CEOs Connect with the theme, Financing and Growing Business, knowing the critical parts that financing plays in the success of every business. This is good news to us. So please do allow me to use this opportunity to express my appreciation to the Canada-Ghana Chamber of Commerce for organizing and ensuring that this event comes off successful. The significance of this event cannot be underestimated, as it brings together government representatives from policymakers to regulatory agencies to supportive agencies, captains of industries, business to business deliberation, and to collaborate on access to finance and growing businesses in this era of global crisis. Distinguished guests, financing and growing business in general is a multifaceted process that involves various strategies and considerations. Whether it is starting a new business or looking to expand an existing one, access to finance and the cost of finance do play a critical role. In Ghana, most industries are categorized as micro, small, or medium enterprises and are more susceptible to challenges and therefore need sustainable investment and capital infusion. Financial instruments that may be available to MSMEs may include, but are not necessarily limited to, personal savings, family or friend support, angel investors, venture capitalists, crowdfunding, small business loans, and grants. However, for businesses to stay in operation, there is the need for their promoters to have access to long-term sources of funding that is manageable under their various portfolios. Distinguished guests, over the years, the Ministry of Trade and Industry has rolled out several programs aimed at supporting industrial development and trade boost productivity and increase trade, particularly export trade. Signing and ratification of international agreements and protocols that provide market access opportunities to locally made goods is a demonstration of the government's willingness to support trade and industry. In recent times, Ghana has acceded to a couple of international trade agreements, including the WTO Trade Facilitation Agreement, the AFCFTA, that is the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement, the Interim Economic Partnership Agreement, the UK-Ghana Trade Partnership Agreement, and African Growth and Opportunity Act, popularly known as AGOA. Lest we forget, it is also important for countries such as Ghana to aggressively pursue industrialization and economic transformation with a special emphasis on creating and implementing incentive packages to support businesses and capacity building. As we are all here supposed to be aware, in 2017, this government launched Industrial Transformation Program. It is within this context that the government commenced the implementation of the One District, One Factory initiative aimed at transforming the production base and natural resource endowments into products for the domestic and foreign markets. Under the initiative, beneficiary companies have enjoyed incentives such as interest subsidy, duty waivers on imported machinery and equipment and parts, and technical support. It is also worth noting that the ministry, through the Ghana Enterprises Agency, has rolled out a number of industry support programs aimed at promoting the development and the growth of SMEs. SMEs do represent over 80% of private-owned businesses. Some of the programs under the GEA are the MasterCard Foundation, Young African Work, the CAP Bus, Coronavirus Alleviation Program and Business Support Scheme, the Ghana Economic Transformation Project and SME Hub, and most recently, the Youth Start. As leaders in the trade and industry sector, I would like us to use this opportunity to encourage each and every one of us to take keen interest in these international agreements and flagship programs and explore them to benefit our businesses. Until we explore the opportunities that are within these agreements, they are as good as being in the agreements. I also want to urge us all, the medium and the large-scale businesses, to serve as an anchor industry and pull along micro and the small businesses by contracting them and subcontracting or delegating certain business processes, tasks, or functions to external third-party providers or companies, rather than handling everything from scratch or in-house. This will support these micro and small businesses to build the capacity to grow. This will lead to reduced costs, improve efficiency, focus on core competencies, and gain access to specialized expertise. Distinguished guests, I wish to express my gratitude to the Canada-Ghana Chamber of Commerce for organizing this relevant event, as it paves way for meaningful discussion to promote fabulous results. I want to seize this opportunity to encourage us all to make the right contacts, build the right networks that will inure to the benefit of our businesses, as well as the two countries, Canada and Ghana. On this note, I would like to resume my seat, sip on some water as we participate in this event and enjoy your productive company. I'm grateful for your audience. Thank you.
Honorable, please, we want you to stand while you take the picture. Don't go away yet.
Honorable Nana Ama Dokua Asiyama Adjei, Deputy Minister of International Trade. members of the Canada-Ghana Chamber of Commerce, distinguished speakers, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It is indeed a great pleasure for me to be with you this morning. Bonjour à tous, il me fait un grand plaisir d'être avec vous ce matin. I would like to begin by thanking the Chamber's President, Alexander Norte, and Executive Secretary, Edwina Atasono, for organizing today's event. I also wish to express my gratitude to the Council, Executive Team, and members of the Chamber for their continued efforts in fostering business connections and partnerships between our countries. During my first year as High Commissioner to Ghana, Togo, and Sierra Leone, I have become acquainted with the dynamic people and vibrant cultures of West Africa. And from this, I've gained an appreciation of the strong interpersonal connections that exist here with Canada through family, friends, education, work, and business. I've also witnessed how quickly this region is transforming itself by fostering new partnerships and growing businesses. Clearly, there is much common ground between our countries, much more common ground between our countries than one might assume. We wish to grow our economies and manage our resources responsibly, taking into account the imperative to fight climate change, create jobs, and advance gender equality. In essence, we subscribe to the same ideas as what former Prime Minister Pierre Elliott Trudeau referred to as just societies. That is, those which seek to remove all social and economic barriers, thereby enabling the full participation of all citizens to benefit from the democratic, social, and economic benefits our nations have to offer. This common vision has been exemplified by the steady expansion of Canadian business partnerships with West Africa and the continent. Last year, total trade in merchandise between Canada and Africa surpassed $15 billion, representing a 56% increase over pre-pandemic figures. Canadian investments over the last 4 years have been increasing at an annual rate of 12.5%. More than 100 Canadian-owned companies conduct mining operations in Africa. Our development programs, partnerships continue to contribute to the strengthening of many rural economies, notably by promoting economic growth, improving health, sanitation, agricultural systems, and mitigating the impacts of climate change. But despite the recent growth in our bilateral trade with Africa, the continent still only accounts for 1% of Canada's global merchandise trade and outward investment. While we continue to benefit from existing opportunities, we also recognize the tremendous economic potential to be realized through the implementation of the African Continental Free Trade Agreement. We strongly support this agreement as it will establish a continent-wide rules-based and investment regime that will afford significant opportunities not only for African nations themselves, but also for external trading partners, including Canada. So to build on this momentum, the Canadian government is developing a Canada-Africa Economic Cooperation Strategy in order to support the advancement of a robust, broad-ranging, and long-lasting economic partnership with Africa. To some extent, the strategy will be a reflection of the rapid changes we are experiencing globally, changes driven by advances in technology, such as artificial intelligence, and the massive investments in energy and mining being undertaken to enable a global energy transition. A good part of this strategy would also consist on educating businesses, Canadian businesses, on the considerable existing and emerging business opportunities in Africa. I believe Canada can and should be a preferred partner. One of the world's top economies and a G7 nation, Canada has established a track record of sustainable development of its vast natural resources, including oil and gas, minerals, forests, and marine resources. We offer a vast array of solutions in the resource sectors, in engineering, infrastructure, advanced manufacturing, education, agriculture, clean technologies, IT, and security, and many more. We are a major source of technology transfer and a model for sound resource governance. In conclusion, I want to acknowledge the high caliber economic contributions that your companies make to the Ghanaian economy and acknowledge that through your excellent leadership, the country will weather economic variabilities and achieve success. I thank you for your interest in and support to the Ghana-Canada relationship, and in particular the work that you do to advance our shared goals of inclusive and sustainable economic prosperity. I look very forward to the panel discussion to come and engaging with you throughout the morning. So, au plaisir de vous rencontrer ce matin. Thank you very much. Merci.
To do us another annex, we have Gilberto Antonio. He's the senior advisor to the AFTA Secretariat. So please, let's welcome Gilberto Antonio.
Thank you very much, Program Director, Excellency Deputy Minister of Trade and Industry, Excellency High Commissioner of Canada here in Ghana, Captain of the Industries, distinguished delegates, all protocol observers, ladies and gentlemen. I've been asking here to share with you what we are doing in terms of creating a single African market for goods and service, and how the AFCFTA will be a game changer for you investors and for you business persons. As you know, Africa is a very large market in terms of potential consumer, 1.4 billion people, but also in terms of a geographical area. Africa is 3 times larger than all European countries combined. And if you compare with India and the same population, Africa is 10 times larger. So it's a large market, but before the AFCFTA is also a fragmented one. We have more than 100 unique land borders, and for you, the economic operator, when you cross the border, you will be confronted with a different trade and investment regime. We have also a high cost of transport, and the procedures to relate with the import, export, and transit of goods are quite long and very complex. Under the AFCFTA, the member states, the state parties are committed, are binded, legal binded, to simplify and harmonize the trade and investment regime so that the goods can come from here to Ghana and expeditiously go to South Africa and be cleared in a very expedite way. Another element important why AFCFTA a game changer for you investors and business persons is related with our competitiveness. We are not at all globally competitive. No single African country is globally competitive. Neither Ghana, South Africa, Nigeria, nor Egypt. And this one, beside all the potential that we have, in terms of a human resource, I mentioned 1.4 billion people. We are the youngest continent in the world where 65% of the population is under 25 years old. Very dynamic, educated youth. We have also potential in terms of a mineral resource. 1/3 of a mineral resources are here in Africa. 40% of gold, 60% of cobalt, 90% of platinum. But beside all this, we are not competitive. If you put together all African countries together, our share in international trade is only 2%. And what we are producing every year is only 3% of the global GDP. So the AFCFTA, there's legal provisions and tools that we want to strengthen the competitiveness of our business community and of Africa countries at regional, continental, and global markets. That is why the heads of state and government of African Union decided to create the largest free trade area since the creation of the WTO, World Trade Organization, by numbers of participants. Now there are 54 countries who have signed the agreement. So what are the tools that we are using or that the head of state and government decide to adopt to make your business community more competitive? First of all, in trade on goods, we want that the goods that are produced here in Ghana with a certain local content will be sent or moved to South Africa, to Kenya, to Morocco, without paying duty tax, without paying the import tax, and having also preferential treatment in terms of non-barrier on trade. We want also that service providers here in Ghana can go to Kenya, can go to different countries, provide their service on a business service, on finance, on transport, and on tourism. We have now agreed on a set of a common framework, legal framework for boost intra-African investment. We have now a protocol on investment. And we want to also when you have innovation, instead of going to every single local IPR, intellectual property office, through us, once your innovation will be protected in an entire continent. We have also a very important protocol that is on competition to allow that when you decide to go to a market, you will not face a challenge to enter because of the anti-competitive behavior of some enterprise that are in a monopoly situation. Very important for us, and is the first time in an Africa treaty, we have a provision, we have a protocol that allow you, business persons, when you are confronted to the police, to the law, or to the behavior of official of another country, you can go to this dispute settlement mechanism and they will decide on the merit of your case. And this is a very important for us to make sure that what the state parts are committed, they will really deliver on these issues. So, welcome to the new era of doing business in Africa. We want you to take advantage of that. There's a space for you to expand your business. There's a space for you to increase your sale. The intention and idea of all the work that we have been doing, or that we are doing with the government, with the trade community, with the business community, is really to increase your competitiveness, the competitiveness of your product vis-a-vis the product that come from the rest of the world. I thank you very much.
Let's clap for our how do you call it, our seasoned panelists who are here. So the first question goes to Mr. Frederick. Can you give us your thoughts about the topic that we have, financing and growing business, per your knowledge and your experience in the workplace at EcoBank and as an individual, as a person? So please, can you share with us your thoughts?
Thank you so much for the question. And I think no other topic would have been selected for such an occasion. Looking at the fact that over 80% of businesses in Ghana, and for that matter, Africa, fall within the bracket of the MSMEs. And until these businesses receive the needed financing and funding, they will never easily grow to become the global corporates, the regional corporates, and the multinationals that we have been aspiring that they grow to be. So financing businesses is key, and I'm sure before the program ends, we would have deliberated on a lot of strategies that will help grow our MSMEs to also become the multinationals and the global corporates that we know and we aspire that they grow to become. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and I must congratulate the Canada Chamber of Commerce for this very well put together program. The business of growing and developing countries involves active participation by the private sector and businesses. And it's very, very important that when we look especially at Ghana's economic development, how we resource, how we encourage, how we direct investments is very, very important. To do this successfully, we must ensure that we have a good framework for the establishment of companies, for the financing of companies, for the attracting of talent, to produce the goods and services that are needed to develop these countries. And that's why about 33 years ago, the Ghana Stock Exchange was set up. The Ghana Stock Exchange was set up to ensure Ghana's economic development by providing access to capital and investment. And we saw this as a really important angle to transform the Ghanaian economy and attain the aspirations of its people. So what we do at the GSE is that we create a platform, an enabling environment, so that people are encouraged to save. Individuals in Ghana are encouraged to save money, and then through things like their pension funds, by individual savings, by corporate savings, we create a platform that channels these savings into investments in well-run businesses and ideas to create the products, goods, and services, meet our infrastructure development needs, create employment, export goods to other nations, etc. And that is why we think that today's discussion on how we can unearth more investments, more financing of businesses is so critical. So far, the GSE, we have raised almost 20 billion Ghana cedis and directed that into investment. About 7 billion of this has come through what we call equity investment, and 13 billion Ghana cedis has been funneled into private investments through things like corporate bond and instruments like that. And that is what we are looking to escalate. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Abena. Nana Bene, please, what is your thoughts and submission?
Thank you, Latif, and good morning to everybody. I'm really pleased to be here. They say it takes a village to raise a child. And in the same way, it takes a multifaceted approach to fund a business. What we normally find is that when people have a good idea or they have a business they want to fund, they have a very set idea of where they are going to raise finances to fund the business. And very often it's just one aspect of the various strategies that have to be put in place to fund the business. So I'm particularly delighted to be here this morning at a forum like this so we can actually discuss these various approaches in funding a business. For us as commercial banks, we tend to be, if you like, the lender of first resort. Everybody comes to us to fund businesses or fund their financial needs, be it short-term, medium-term, or long-term. The very big secret about these things is that normally commercial banks are really very good at funding short-term needs and not quite helpful when it comes to funding medium-term to long-term needs. Why? Because most people who bring monies to banks that banks can use to own lend will bring their investments to us in a short-term nature. I'm sure there's nobody here who would agree to give us fixed deposits for 5 years, knowing very well what happens in the exchange rate regime, etc., etc. So we tend to have short-term funds. So how then do we fund businesses? Our approach is that we want to do this in partnership with the various providers of financing. And Abner touched on one aspect of it, raising financing through the stock exchange. There are other aspects of people who offer long-term funding, which effectively complements with the short-term funding in making sure that the business then has a sustainable strategy in terms of survival. And so it's very important for us as banks to work with a number of these other stakeholders when it comes to funding businesses. One of the best things that has happened in Ghana, for example, is the establishment of the Development Bank of Ghana, DBG. And why? Because they have funding that goes for medium to long term. So if you have a business idea and you came to a bank, the bank could approach DBG for medium-term funding, which complements the short-term funding that the bank would have. So you as a business person will then have access to both short-term funding and to medium-term funding. And that for us is the key and the secret to sustainability of businesses, especially small, medium businesses, that they have this ability to do long-term projects with funding that does not demand almost immediate repayment. So we're really glad to be here with all the key stakeholders to propagate this message and also to find ways to collaborate together to make sure that the businesses that we fund become sustainable for the future.
Thank you, Nana. Please, Dr. Ifya Sabiasari, can you bring your perspective in terms of GEPA to the topic?
Thank you very much for this invite. The Ghana Export Promotion Authority, as you know, is a trade promotion organization, and mostly our clients are in the small and medium enterprises sector, and it means that they will be looking for financing for exporting, producing, manufacturing their products, and it becomes very difficult because you know which brackets these organizations fall in, the missing middle, and it's so difficult for them to access funding from commercial banks, and mostly some of them depend on government intervention. And so at Ghana Ports and Harbours Authority, Ghana Export Promotion Authority, I work with the Ports and Harbours Authority, so sometimes I get at GEPA, what we do is to support them with some interventions and also work with the banks to create products that will support them in their businesses. It has been quite difficult, but some of the banks have come on board to support us. We have our own Exim Bank as well supporting most of these organizations. We also support by way of interventions with subsidized good seedlings for the agri sector and exposure to the markets. And so these are some of the things we do for them, such that when they have to go out for expos and fairs, we actually pay for their freighting and for the spaces that they would need to expose their products and services. Otherwise, we need the support of the banking system to help them move to the next level. And that is why we are here. And I'm really following this discussion to see where this is going to lead us in supporting our small businesses to scale to the next level. Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor. Please, Ni, you are a Ghanaian who lives in Canada. And what is your thoughts and knowledge about financing and growing business in terms of Canada?
Well, thank you very much. I'm glad to be here. As you know, SMEs are the backbone of every country. And so if we don't grow them the right way, governments will be struggling. So, we are here certainly to sort of try to connect the two countries together to sort of try to mobilize the situation. For instance, helping with the due diligence, ensuring that when SMEs are looking for loans outside or funding outside, they follow the due process and also protect the investor interest here in Ghana. And one of the things that we do is that we'll try to connect the right investors with the right institutions and organizations, ensuring that the due diligence is there, has been done, and they have access to the right funding. A lot of the time, if you're a small business and you are struggling with funding, if you go for a loan that is very, high interest rate loan, you tend to struggle to pay the loan back, thereby affecting the performance of your business. And so what we do is that we try to strategize to get institutions that can loan or give investors that can loan at a lower rate to sort of connect with them with businesses that we know will thrive, that have done the proper due diligence, proper forecasting to ensure that they're also able to pay back their loans on time. So I'm glad to be here. Coming from Reality Capital Management, that's what we do. We look for funding for small organizations from Canada to Ghana and vice versa. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Ni. Dr. Farid, please, your thoughts about financing and growing business in Ghana after thought.
Thank you very much for having me here. I come from the after perspective, and ours is to try and see how we can get the Ghanaian businesses to be competitive on the African market. And as the last speaker from the After Secretariat indicated, one thing that stirs us is the lack of competitiveness. Ghana has the highest interest rate behind Zimbabwe on the continent. And this ranges from about 30% compared to 1% in the Seychelles, and even 4-5% along the west coast here. Some places 18% Nigeria. So, and our companies have to go out there and compete. And so one of the struggles that we have been having is to find potentials for providing innovative financing for engagement in cross-border commercial investments and trade. Now, this means getting the banks to, and I think that has already been said, to look beyond the very short term and also to look beyond all the cumbersome procedures for access. Because people, the type of investments that you need to go out there need to be less encumbered. I understand the financial sector when they also say trading and investing in Africa is risky. But that is where we need the governments to come in and put in place the necessary policy framework to de-risk. And in this situation, I believe that we are also not taking full advantage of the insurance companies. The insurance companies have a huge role to play by providing trade finance insurance, trade risk insurance, and we're not doing that, whilst there's plenty of money sitting in the insurance sector. And so we need to look at all the opportunities, all the various instruments that we have to see how we can first and foremost de-risk trade to the, finance to the trading sector, but also to try and make our companies and our investors more competitive on the continent. Thank you.
So you Grant, per GIPC, thoughts of financing and growing business. What is your thoughts about next topic?
It's an interesting question for me because I look at it from two perspectives. First of all, I mean, depending on the state of the economy which you are, borrowing may not be the most ideal financing mechanism. And if today you look at Ghana and like Dr. Farid just said, you're an SME relative. I mean, 85% of our companies in Ghana are SMEs. And you have to borrow at 30%. It's not, sometimes not a viable option. Unless, of course, your business has so much cash flow and is returning so high that 30% is a cost you can afford to bear. And so you have to look at alternative means of finance. And there are quite a number. You can either look at supplier's credit, which then allows you to get your goods with credit from the supplier, and you both work together to make sure that you can pay back. But then on the end of the spectrum, there are partnerships that you can engage with your trade partners to ensure that they finance a bit of your business, not just your inventory. They can become partners in your company and therefore bring down your overall cost of borrowing or investment. And I was just telling one of the audience here that he's in a diversified business. And he said, well, he's here. And he was telling me why he's here. And I said, the other reason why he ought to be here is that perhaps your biggest partners are in this room, but you don't know them because you haven't engaged them. But it's also a question of the level of financial development or intermediation in the economy. Today, most of the SMEs, SMIs only know about bank loans. They feel they should go to the bank to borrow, and then they can't pay. And we all know what that ends up as. You have many distressed companies who cannot pay, whilst they may be trading with potential partners. So there are many instances where you see the potential for mergers. You sometimes see the potential for acquisitions. You also see the potential for investment capital from either private equity firms, venture capital firms, but also foreign direct investment. The challenge we have as a country is that we need to open up the space to facilitate that. In our own laws, the GIPC's laws, a foreign investor has to demonstrate, if he's registering his company as a fully owned, foreign-owned company, he has to demonstrate that he's brought in $500,000. If you're in a joint venture with a Ghanaian, then the foreign company has to bring in $200,000. But very often, we are silent on what the Ghanaian has to bring. And so you have, the foreign company come in a joint venture with the Ghanaian, and the Ghanaian insists on a 50-50 partnership. But the Ghanaian can barely demonstrate that he has $200,000 to co-invest. So it requires new ways and creative ways in which to get these partnerships going. I mean, our inclination, having done a wide consensus building on that, is that perhaps even that law is antiquated because it doesn't do well for us, only because 85% of our companies are SMEs. They are small companies. And if they can't borrow because it's too expensive, then they need partnerships. And sometimes your partners are outside. They are not here. But sometimes too, they are here. And so it means that we need to look at that law to amend it a bit. But at the end of the day, I think financing a company has different phases, depending on which phase of your company you are. If it's a startup, the kind of financing you require is different from one looking for growth capital. And it's also different from one looking to expand market or expand its product line or product base. So it really depends. What I can say is that depending on the kind of company you have and depending on the requirements that you have, your financing model may differ beyond just debt. Yeah. And we should look at it. But on a last note, though, many companies always feel that financing is their biggest problem. But I can tell you, after 30 years of investment banking and now in the marketing stage and doing a lot of development, for most of them, it's not finance. It's just corporatizing and making sure that they have the right governance structures to enable them work well.
Thank you very much. And please ask our panelists at just mentioned. Can you give them a round of applause for the submission so far? And ask our panelists I just mentioned, there's a business partner who will be sitting by you, which you need not to go to the bank or go to another place for money for your business. So you can network among yourself and ensure that before you leave here, there's somebody who will be here to support your business and get your business running. And Dr. Farid, I have this question for you. How can the African Continental Free Trade area provide a business opportunity that will enhance investment in Ghana in line with the Agenda 2063?
Well, thank you for that question too. The AFTA basically does only two things. One is to create a level playing field, not just for Ghanaians, but for all other African companies to be able to invest in each other's country. Currently, there are 47 countries that have ratified the agreement, and 54 out of the 55 African countries have signed it. So basically, that is all that it does. The rest is a matter of compliance. You need to comply with the rules of origin, and then you need to also comply with the schedule of tariffs that has been liberalized. These are the two things. But then you go into how do you really take advantage of them? In that regard, various countries have developed their own strategies for pushing and supporting their companies and their businesses to go into the African continent. In Ghana, the strategy the government adopted started with the very creation of the National Coordination Office. The thinking was that before the AFTA came on board, Ghana had signed several agreements. We are members of WTO, we have AGOA, we have EPLS and things. But there was no concerted effort to take advantage of all these agreements. So in this particular case, the government felt it necessary to have a certain focus at ensuring that we were able to harness the benefits of AFTA, not least because we were hosting AFTA. And therefore, the government thought it necessary to put in place a dedicated architecture internally to support the implementation of AFTA in Ghana. It was not required initially by even the agreement, but since then it has been adopted by the Secretariat, and now all other African countries seeking to participate in AFTA are being encouraged to set up national offices very similar to what we have in Ghana. In terms of what the office does, beyond the intensive sensitization and awareness creations that we do, we also, as our name indicates, we are a coordination office, we're not an executive body. And so we are very mindful of the need to work with other agencies. And I cooperate since our office cooperates intensely with GEPA, with GIPC, with Ghana Standards, with Customs, and so on and so forth. This is based on the realization that we do, that realization that no one agency can can ensure the success of AFTA. We need several agencies to come together. At the last count, we counted about 19 agencies that all have various parts to play, from the banks, which we have just discussed, to investment agencies like what my brother is talking about, to GEPA, to the various other customs and so on and so forth. Specifically, at this stage in the development of AFTA, what we have done is to put in place a mechanism for actually identifying Ghanaian companies that we think has the potential to go into the African continent. And we did this with collaboration with Customs, where we looked at customs data to see those who are exporting, and we came up with 3 categories of companies. Those companies that were exporting to Africa or trading with Africa even before AFTA came on board were the first line because they know the African market. The second category is companies that deal with the rest of the world but not Africa because they have global marketing experience, and we thought that could be oriented towards Africa. The third category is companies that produce
intentionally for the Ghanaian market, but that have good products that can go into Africa. So we've been working with these companies, and along with our partner agencies, we did a trip to an expedition to Nairobi with 65 Ghanaian companies in May, which was a very successful investment. During that trip, we went principally with GEPA. GEPA also initiated the establishment of an African trade house in Nairobi, and I'm sure somewhere along the line, the CEO would like to talk about that. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Farid. Dr. Ifia Sabia-Sari, I want to ask you the next question. What is the role of GEPA in Ghana export trade and SME internationalization?
As Dr. Farid just said, we support the exporters mainly with subsidies in some of the products that they produce. We also support them by way of linking them to the market, helping them become export ready. And we do this by putting them through our export school and also exposing them to the market. And as I said earlier, we do not charge for doing this. The government pays to take them out there to showcase what they have. And what we are trying to do going forward is to put up our trade houses in strategic markets so that when we go for the expos, we don't just leave without leaving behind what we brought or without getting businesses there. We want to site our Ghana trade houses in strategic markets, and we've done just that in Kenya recently in May, where we opened the Ghana Trade House, which I am proud to say is doing very well. So we are looking at other markets to do same. This is all in support of the exporter who belongs to the small business sector. So that's what we're doing.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Frederick Amon Atakra, are the bank interested in financing business?
Thank you, Latif. Yes, the banks are very much interested in financing business. In as much as we have found other sources of non-interest income. Interest income, if you look at our balance sheet, remains a very significant source of revenue for every financial institution. And when you look at the classical definition of a bank, then it talks about deposit taking and giving out of loans and advances. And in giving out of loans and advances, that's the only way your interest income is going to come up. So we are very much interested in funding SMEs, and it is for this reason that if you are aware in the social media, our bank, EcoBank, was adjudged the best SME bank in Africa by Euromoney, and this has been the second consecutive year that the bank has been adjudged the best SME banking. And we do not just provide only funding. We have other ancillary support services we do to facilitate business. As Dr. Farid and Dr. Ifua have already said, we were instrumental in partnering them in facilitating funds from Nairobi to Ghana after the Ghanaian businesses have exhibited and they have made sales. We did not just only do that, we also helped them to incorporate a business in Nairobi that is exhibiting Ghana-made products and services out there. In that same manner, we are leveraging on our network of 33 African countries where we have presence to facilitate the movement of goods and services, as well as repatriation of funds to Ghana. And therefore, with the after dream which has been envisioned, I think no bank is best placed in facilitating the business across Africa better than EcoBank. Because apart from the Maghrebs, that is when you take the northern part of Africa, Egypt, Tunisia, Algeria, and the likes, we are present in every country south of the Sahara, and therefore we become a preferred and a right partner if you indeed intend to do business across Africa.
Okay, thank you. So participants, if you are here, EcoBank said they are ready for you. So make sure that at this place you get in touch with Mr. Frederick Amo for business that he has enlightened. Nana, please, I want to find out from you, what is your opinion on challenges regarding securing funds for business in Ghana?
Thank you very much. And I'm really glad to be here because if I'm happy that we are having a lot of conversation, firstly around after, because finally, my colleague EcoBank cannot continue to bully us. You know, the beauty about after, which is why especially local indigenous banks like UNB are so pleased about, is that suddenly we also have the barriers of entry in doing business with other banks being removed. Afrexim Bank have set up the PAP system, which is a payment platform, which allows us to do trade, or if a business in Ghana were doing trade with a business in Nigeria or Uganda, you could pay locally, and the money is transferred almost seamlessly, in theory, to your counterpart out there. So it suddenly opens a huge opportunity for banks like myself, working in UNB, to collaborate with an indigenous bank in Uganda, who we both don't have the muscle of EcoBank, but now through PAPS, we can send money seamlessly across. So we can now envisage partnerships of local banks from one country to the other. In the same way, it works for businesses as well. So there's a company I know in Ghana, in Pampa Cereal, produces Tom Brown, cocoa, etc. I have some friends who visited from Kenya, and they fell in love with the cereal so much. So every time they are sending that we buy cereal and put it on Kenya Airways or something and send it to them. Such a company now can work with GEPA and go to the trade house in Nairobi, and suddenly the market opened up for a local business like that. So that's the beauty we are envisaging. In Ghana, we import flowers from Netherlands. Guess what? Those flowers are from Rwanda and from Kenya. So why do the flowers have to go from Rwanda to Netherlands before it comes to Ghana? So those are the key areas of business that is now open. Why do I start with that, Latif? Because you see, in funding a business, we want to understand the sustainability of that business. Where's their market? And how much growth can they envisage? Which brings me to another very important part when we are going to fund businesses. Information. What we've learned about with most Ghanaian businesses is that they're very passionate in going ahead with the business. But we are not as passionate as documenting what actually makes that business tick. Our financial information on our companies normally leaves a lot to be desired. But for you to attract somebody to come and invest and to put money in your business, they need to understand, or they need to have a transparent view of what your business looks like, so that when they put money in, they know to what extent success is achievable. And so at UNB, we focus a lot on partnerships with SME. Partnerships that involve working together to help them to provide a set of information about their business that stands the scrutiny of every investor, both local or international. So when somebody now wants to come and put money in your business, they can understand clearly what are your business drivers and where it's heading to. And then the second one, of course, is to see what's the potential of that business to grow. Where is your market? Where are you taking the market to? Those are the exciting things that once we have sorted out, then it is easy to put money into. And and hope that that business can grow.
Lee, before I come to you, I want to go to Mrs. Abner Amwa on this question. When you were speaking, you said you create a platform channel of savings into investment. And I want to ask you this particular question. How does the Ghana Stock Exchange help businesses to raise capital?
Thank you very much. This is my passionate area. We have set up 3 markets. One is the main market for large companies. And on that market, you can raise what we call equity capital. It really is patient, long-term capital that allows you to grow and expand your business. You never have to pay back that capital, but you deploy that capital, you invite investors in, you deploy that capital, grow the business, pay them dividend, list the company on the exchange, and they trade the shares, and the investor makes money on the price appreciation or the dividends they make on that market. We set up our second market called the Ghana Alternative Exchange. And the Ghana Alternative Exchange is our solution to the SME sector. And on that market, small companies again raise long-term patient equity capital. We set up our third market in 2015, the Ghana Fixed Income Market. And that is a market where, again, corporates can raise what we call corporate bonds and notes, fixed income securities. It's essentially a loan, a long-term loan. You have to pay back. You have to pay interest on it back. And on that market as well, this year we are hoping to launch a commercial paper market, which is a short-term loan for that. Why all of this is important is that capital markets are the backbone of economic development. Canada is where it is because of things like the Canadian or the Toronto Stock Exchange. And the Toronto Stock Exchange, again, has even the Toronto TSX Ventures, which is our equivalent of the Ghana Alternative Market. About 10 years ago, Ghana liberalized our pensions industry. There are over 3 million Ghanaians, way below the 16 million Ghanaians in employment. But today, there are over 3 million Ghanaians contributing every month to pension schemes, Tier 2 and Tier 3. As at the first half of this year, our pensions industry has about 50 billion Ghana cedis. The average age of Ghanaian, we are a very young population. So the money today is money that can be invested for about 30 years. This is the solution for our access to long-term capital. Today, the private pensions industry has over 40 billion Ghana cedis looking for investment opportunities in long-term projects. So for us as entrepreneurs here, how are we positioning ourselves to take advantage and to take up this capital? Over 95% of this 40 billion Ghana cedis was put in Government of Ghana securities. Barely any of us as private sector companies put ourselves up to take these investments. And yet, every month, our CFOs are writing checks to go into these pension funds. So our work really at the GSE is how we collaborate with the private sector, with infrastructure developers, and create a platform that ensures, one, the right corporate governance practices of companies, of projects, of ideas. And that is why when you come on the Ghana Stock Exchange, you must come with your advisors who prepare you, who check that your books are according to the states they should be in, your legal standing, your board is well composed. All of these things are done to ensure that that business is run in a sustainable manner and will return or has good prospects to return strong dividends or rewards to those investors. And that is how we help companies raise capital. We have licensed a group of advisors called licensed dealing members or dealers on all our markets, and any investor or any issue or company can reach any of them and they will prepare you. The process to come to the market and raise capital can take 4 to 6 months. And ours is to make sure that a company articulates its vision, articulates the use of funds, and we bring the investors, most of which are our pension funds, local as well as international portfolio investors across Africa and outside of Africa to come up and take advantage of this. Another initiative we've been pushing also is the African Exchanges Linkage Project. This is a project where we are linking all of African securities exchanges under one platform. We have over 2,000 companies listed on the stock exchanges of Africa with a combined market capitalization of value of $2 trillion, which means that a company that is raising capital in Ghana under this project essentially can raise capital across Africa and tap into all the investors that are in African countries. And then those securities can also trade on all our securities exchange. So this is good news for you. When you say you don't have access to capital, today all of us are contributing or have contributed over 50 billion cedis. Every year we are putting in another 500 million Ghana cedis into our pension funds, and we should start getting ourselves ready to have these funds deployed in our companies and in our projects. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Samuel. And when you were speaking earlier on, you said that you are connecting right investors into right businesses. So I have this particular submission for you, and I want to find out from you, how can businesses in Ghana penetrate the Canada market?
Well, thank you. For a Ghanaian business or any business for that matter to penetrate the Canadian business market is very easy. I'll just give you a couple of examples as well. So one of the things that businesses can do is to do a lot of digital marketing and online marketing, e-commerce. I mean, that is one of the areas that if you are a business here and you want to penetrate the Canadian market to be known, it's an area that you need to focus on. There's a company called Share Moisture. They use digital marketing, e-commerce very effectively, and they've been able to penetrate the Canadian market, and they are doing very great in most Canadian houses. Everybody knows Share Moisture right now in Canada, and they did it through that process. One other way that I think you can use is partnerships. Partnerships is one of the ways to go. You can partner, for example, with distributors and retailers in Canada so that you can get the market penetration. One company that I think have done that is Casa Preco. They have partnered with distributors and some retailers in Canada, and they currently have shelf space in some of the liquor stores for non-alcoholic beverages as well as alcoholic beverages in Canada. So they were able to do that through partnership with distributors and retailers, in Canada. That's one of the areas that I've seen happen, and they are doing very well. One other area that comes to thought that you can use is forums like this, like what we are doing. Like you have trade shows, investment programs, collaboration, networking, and all that. That will help you penetrate the Canadian market. Again, there's a company called Adipa Shoes. They were able to do that, through cultural shows, trade shows, such as this sort of networking to penetrate the Canadian market. There is also an eyeglasses company. They call them Botin glasses. They use bamboo wood to make eyeglasses, and they've penetrated the Canadian market solely through events like this. So in a nutshell, these things works. E-commerce, online, digital marketing, social media. Use that to penetrate. You have an aggressive person who can do that, who understands the Canadian market. It will take you through partnerships, collaborations with retailers and distributors will help you as well. Thank you.
CUNY. Participants who are here, I think you are in the right place to ensure that you connect your businesses as to other businesses to ensure that your business is growing out there. Mr. UOV Grant, I know very well that you are interested in investment. And then how is GIPC investment drive impacting existing business?
It's pretty simple, and there are quite a number of categories of investment facilitation that we do. Firstly, as what I would say, an officer under the presidency, our task is first to elevate the Ghana brand. And below the Ghana brand are the opportunities, the investment opportunities that exist in Ghana. And so it may be G2G or G2B or B2B. G2G being government to government, G2B being government to business, and then B2B being business to business. And so we facilitate these. Our job has a number of components: attraction, facilitation, execution, and then, of course, we have aftercare, where we support investors who are here by preempting problems and suggesting solutions, or finding the agencies that can bring solutions to their problems. And in that, what GIPC has done, at least in the past few years, is when we go on our outward missions, because the investors that you want are usually not here. They are outside. So what we do is we take our private sector people with us to some of our trade shows that we do, business missions, investment missions, and we work very closely with Ghana Export Promotion Center. Once in a while, we work with the Stock Exchange. We work with the Free Zones Authority. But also, Dr. Arthur has just said that, and the Deputy Minister said it, there is a compelling opportunity right now for us to step out more. Because for us, we see linkage as a very important bit of penetration of business. So partnerships for linkages are very critical. And out of that, maybe if I may break protocol and ask all those who are members of the Ghana-Canada Chamber, can you raise your hands? So a significant proportion are here. If you are a member of the Ghana-Canada Chamber and you have a partnership with another member in the chamber, can you lift your hand? Now, you see, just 3 of you. But for all you know, the opportunities lie within those who are here in partnerships for linkages and trade. And those are some of the things that we do. We organize breakfast meetings, bring CEOs around, find their problems, and try and link them together. That linkage is extremely, extremely important. Canada has become a very important market globally. And just not that, they host quite a number of conferences that bring industry players together. For example, in the mining space, there's a major conference in Canada called PDAC. There's the Calgary Oil and Gas Conference. There's the ATS, which is about textiles and garments. And all these are opportunities where you can actually go out through your own partnerships to market. And I was very delighted to hear from the High Commissioner, and thank you very much for that, that Canadian investment in Ghana has been growing at an average of 12.5% annually. But do you know why it's growing? It's because of trade. Canada is also a resource-rich country. So is Ghana. But they see linkages that can actually increase trade. And for many of the companies that I've seen with Canadian investment, is to increase the amount of trade between the two countries. It's just not they've seen an opportunity and they want to invest. It's the ability to create more trading opportunity. And what we also offer as a country in Ghana is an entry point into the Africa market. And so many times when I've spoken to Canadian companies, I say, look, if you're into manufacturing and you're looking for a real market today, that market may not be in North America nor in Europe. It's in Africa. A population of 1.4 billion people. 6 out of the 10 fastest growing economies in the world are in Africa. Africa has over 40% of the world's mineral resources here, over 60% of the remaining arable land left. That is just opportunity staring at you. But you have to start from here and create the linkages that will enable it to happen. And I tell the Canadian companies that find a Ghanaian partner, come and manufacture in Ghana for the African market. Exporting from Ghana gives you a tariff-free market. Your chances of increasing your profitability are multiplied than manufacturing in Canada and exporting to Ghana. So the opportunities are immense, and they are there. They're staring at us. Now we ought to be bold. We ought to be more aggressive. And I'll urge a lot of you that, and Dr. Arthur said it, and many others have said it, technology today virtually melts borders. So go out, seek information. You have all sorts of conferences, all sorts of meetings, all sorts of exhibitions taking place where you can find partners, credible partners, at least for the serious ones. And where it's impossible because you are too small, that is where I think the chamber can work to find facilities to enable our people go for some of, participate and demonstrate, or not demonstrate, exhibit in some of these conferences, etc. And now on the last note, and I'll appeal to the High Commissioner, that I believe that there is a lot of opportunity between the two countries. Sometimes when our business people want to go, the visa process is a bit limiting. I mean, we just recently missed out on a great opportunity for GEPA, where they had spent $100,000 to build a pavilion to go and exhibit. But they were inhibited from doing so because of the visa process. So that's 100,000 burnt. That 100,000 could have funded at least 10 people here to go exhibit. So I think that it's also part of the problem that we need, and once you have a chamber, I think the chamber itself should be proactive in making sure that you engage the embassy to open opportunities for you. And we on the GIPC side, we have a good relationship with the Canadian High Commission, and we ensure that we only send legitimate applications, we support legitimate applications for business exhibitions and conferences. So we are well positioned to assist, both on the Canadian side and on the Ghana side. I mean, sometimes we have Canadian companies saying, we want to come to Ghana, we're having a tough time getting the visa. We immediately arrange for visa on arrival for them, so they can do it in 2 days. And I hope that we can also have a quick way in which you can respond to Ghanaian business looking at the Canadian market. I think mutually we can build a great business relationship. And I'm very happy that the High Commissioner is here, and we are here today with the Ghana-Canada Chamber of Commerce. So the chamber itself should be more proactive and be more dynamic and ensuring the linkages. And I'm sure the Ministry of Trade itself, I mean, we've had bilateral agreements between countries. We continue to work to ensure that these bilateral agreements inure to our mutual benefit.
All right. Please, can we give a round of applause to our panelists? I must say that in recent time, I was engaging one of the chamber members on how to secure a fund for an NGO that I'm trying to support to raise sponsorship for a project they are doing in the community. And he said that there are a whole lot of organizations that are interested in funding businesses and institutions in Ghana, but we have not found the right people. So if there are people who have corporate social responsibility that they want to fund a lot of projects and a lot of businesses around. So as we sit here and we are engaging among ourselves, there's somebody who needs your how do you call it, your business to be able to help support you. So as you are engaging one after the other, things will come your way. So it's now time for us to ask questions so that our panelists can give us favorable answers to them. And because of time...
Can I just add another point?
Yes, Mr. Yofi, just 1 minute.
No, 30 seconds.
Okay, 30 seconds, please. Is somebody help me with the time?
Another very important point. There are a lot of Ghanaians within Accra in Ghana who have very strong Canadian connections. A lot of Ghanaians, even in office, were trained in Canada. There are a lot of them here. I think they are our best ambassadors because they bridge the two countries. And so I think you should also engage them in the Ghana-Canada Chamber of Commerce. I know there's an association trying to be formed. And I think it would work well in also opening up business linkages for you.
Okay, thank you very much. So please, if you have a question that you want to answer, you can put up your hand. There are 2 microphones there. We'll take the first three set of questions and we can answer. So please, you can come forward. Who again will join him?
Morning, panelists. Good morning, the rest of the crowd. My name is Cyril Fayose. I'm an industrial engineer. I'm a CEO for a company called SciBiotech Scientific Services. We deal with a lot of industry, sales, repair, and installation of machines. My question here is, I noticed a lot of the dichotomy was about finance, but one thing we failed to actually address is the back end and the technical aspects of industry, which is manufacturing. Now, one of the key aspects that we also don't look at is maintenance management. And for me, I'm trying to figure out if any of the panels can give me an answer to this question. What they think about the effect of business sustainability in the manufacturing industry, especially where it has to do with maintenance management of equipment. The second question I have is, we're discussing SMEs right now, and I want to ask them about their opinion on SME adaptation of circular economy. Basically, we know everybody looking towards the green earth. So we're looking at issues that have to do with environmental sustainability. Most of the time in manufacturing, what we do is we use the acronym TAKE, MAKE, WASTE. We take raw materials, we make what we want, and then we waste the ends. Now, as we're going through a greener earth, we're looking for aspects of reusing, recycling, reducing waste. So I want to find out if any of you, actually from the financial point of view, have an idea of how SMEs can take advantage of this so they can have they put on. Thank you very much.
Please, anybody can give an answer. Mr. Frederick, you want to give an answer? Okay.
I'll try with beginning from question 2. The sustainability aspect of SME business. Yes. Now it has become the cliche, and banks are expected to also incorporate them in their policies. For some of the sources of funding, before you could even access, you need to show your sustainability plans before you could access certain financing. And for EcoBank, we subscribe to policies like the Equita principles that ensure that you are not funding any organization or institutions whose activities are inimical and harmful to the environment. And therefore, we incorporate sustainability principles in our lending process. So before every credit passes, you would have to equally pass your E&S, that's environmental and sustainability due diligence, which is part of the credit package that will go out to be approved. So we make sure we are doing business that are sustainable, and this is a clear policy that has been incorporated into our lending practices. So we do ensure that, yes, we are reducing the use of raw materials, we are reusing, and we are also supporting the recycling so that we will have a sustainable business. Thank you.
Just to add to that, I think in more recent times, there's easier funding for projects and companies that are operating in the SDG space. That means their outcomes are SDG compliant. And GIPC, we work with the UNDP to come up with what we call the SDG SME roadmap, which actually shows areas that are SDG compliant, that actually make money but are SDGs, but are small investments. Because the banks, and let's be frank, let's be brutally frank, the banks do not favorably look at SMEs. Because the same amount of the work they'll do to give you a loan is the same amount of work they'll do to give a big company $10 million. And they will get very little from you as an SME. So globally, SMEs are the lowest end of the lending, pecking order. But now, because of the SDGs, there is significantly a lot of attention going to SMEs. And there's also a certain tacit recognition globally that to keep growth going, you need to fund SMEs because they are the companies that become the blue chips in the future. So that is happening. We are also once again working with the UNDP and the Ground Up Project in Canada to set up a $250 million fund of funds, which is going to provide funding for many of our private equity fund managers in Ghana to be able to lend to SMEs. And by the way, our definition of SMEs is very different from the definition of SMEs in the bigger economy. But the IFC definition, you must have total assets of $15 million and employ less than 200 people. I mean, in Ghana, a company with $50 million is a whooping big company. So we need to understand the framework of SMEs here. Most likely we are talking of microfinancing for our SMEs because some of them require not more than 200,000, 100,000, etc., etc. 10,000. I'm actually reliably informed that the Ministry of Finance is actually trying to structure a facility that would help with SME financing. Now, the first question you ask is really the bigger nut to crack on the maintenance value. Now, the reason in my mind, and I may be wrong, the reason why we don't have it as much is that we are not yet a manufacturing economy. We are very much a consumption economy. So we haven't learned first to make machines and to keep them going. And sadly to notice that a lot of the factories are imported and they also import the technical capability to maintain them. So it becomes expensive for them. So you have somebody bring in a machine, maybe from Canada, they need to bring a Canadian expert to ensure that the machine survives. So I think you are in a very good spot. I mean, we can tell from your accent that you're American trained. So obviously you will have access to the technologies to enable us maintain equipment in Ghana. But it's a bigger issue. Very often when some equipment gets damaged, the part has to be imported or, you have to bring a new machine because it's imported. And I think that government's efforts to increase TVET education and technical education is a medium-term effort to try and bridge that. But we are still not yet at the place where we have our own technologies to build our own factories, etc. But it is coming small. So, yeah.
Right. Thank you very much.
I just want to
just under 1 minute. If you can do it.
30 seconds.
Okay, please.
That at GEPA, we are working with the International Trade Center on the project T4SD, which is Trade for Sustainability, where we help our clients, the SMEs, to understand the whole process of being environmentally sustainable. And through this, we have some access to some loans for organizations that are compliant. So, to the chamber, those of you who are interested, I don't even know if your members are registered with GEPA, and you should be working very closely with an organization like GEPA. That's my little advice to the chamber. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Fias-Abesare. Please, I think since we didn't put up our hands, we have ended the last section. So currently, I'm just going to give a running closing remark for everybody, just under 1 minute for you to share. But before then, I have a last submission question for Mr. Frederick and then Mr. Nana. Just a quick one in that regards. With regard to the increasing monetary policy rates for banks, how do you ensure that businesses do not suffer the brunt? Just under 1 minute.
Okay, thank you. This is a question that is simple but very much loaded, because monetary policy is controlled by the central bank, and banks have nothing to do than to accept it as it is announced within the first 7 days of every week. As we speak, the current monetary rate is 29.28, and that is very steep. In literal terms, that is the rate below which no financial institutions is willing to lend. And if this is already at 30%, we need to now profile each business we are doing with and now add a margin. So the government has a very significant role to play as far as lending rates are concerned, because it is a floating rate. That is, each bank places a premium on top of the monetary policy rate that is issued by the banks monthly. But to take advantage of this opportunity and to ask something.
So that's your final submission. You know, come back to the closing remark.
Okay.
Under 1 minute.
Okay.
30 seconds.
Thank you. A lot of issues have been raised about access to funding, but we've also been made aware that now most of the problem could possibly not be funding, but maybe access to market. So at EcoBank, we do not just give out tools, that is funding to people who are possibly not well trained to manage it. It becomes dangerous. So we also equip you with training to ensure you will be able to. Then, as the first of its kind, we have created a single market hub.
Thank you very much. Please, thank you. Thank you. Nana Bene, please, do you have any thoughts, or we should go ahead?
Thank you very much. We recently had a workshop, UMB had a workshop with some of the SME clients, and it was really to talk about this issue. How do businesses survive in the current macroeconomic environment? And we focused very much on how businesses can look inward and drive efficiencies. And also find alternative ways. Mr. Hefri Graham mentioned a few of those ones. Talking to your suppliers to try and get credit from your suppliers, etc. But more often than, we also had the GRA experts there to educate more people around taxation, because what we found is that for most of the SMEs, they have very basic knowledge about taxation, and sometimes inadvertently, they get more tax than they should be. So we are focusing very much on the thought leadership, engaging with the various aspects, so we can drive more efficiencies in each of the businesses, because we believe that once the businesses become a bit more efficient, then the ability to absorb some of these higher rates through finding alternatives will help them to sustain their businesses.
Thank you, Nana. Please, Mrs. Amoah, can you have your last submissions based on the discussion so far, just under 1 minute?
Okay. No business can survive at a cost of capital of 30%. And I dare say no government can also survive at a cost of capital of 30%. If government of Ghana defaulted when interest rates were 19% and it's paying 30% on treasury bill today, we are just asking for the inevitable. So that's why at the Ghana Stock Exchange, we ask for you to also come and raise equity capital. Ghanaian owners should stop being afraid of opening up their businesses for other people to invest in it. The most successful, the sustainable businesses go far through partnership. Open up your companies, list them, attract other investors, live by the good corporate governance practices, including ESG principles that the Ghana Stock Exchange promotes. And we invite all of you. We look outside a lot for everything. Let's look inside. How do we deploy the capital we have here? How do we partner with other Ghanaians, other Africans, and then global investors as well? So we invite you.
Mrs. Amoah, we'll look inside. We'll look inside. We'll not go outside. We'll look inside. Dr. Ifya Sabiasare, please, your final submission in terms of opportunities for businesses in GEPA.
I would like the Chamber of Commerce to register with GEPA, work with GEPA, and everything that you've heard here, we will educate you on these things through our export school, so that from the center of the world, you can reach other places. Thank you.
Thank you. Dee, looking at the situation in Ghana and then Canada, just give us an information that we need to be able to ensure that we can leverage between these two countries and get things done per your knowledge in tax and other things and business regulations.
Yes, so thank you. So, like I said before, it's better for us to collaborate, the two countries should collaborate when it comes to business. One of the areas that I think Ghanaian businesses are not taking advantage of is the fact that they're not doing a lot of partnership with Canadian businesses, as well as focusing on joint ventures and other areas. most of the time when a Ghanaian have a business, they keep the business like their baby. They don't want to partner. They tend to nurture the business and they don't want to even sell shares. But you know, a real business person will tell you that you create a business, you grow it and you sell it. Or you sell part of it so that the business can grow faster. That's why most of our small businesses are not thriving. You should be able to think outside of the box, try to get partners to join you. You know, you have to get joint ventures and get the business to grow. If you cannot do it by yourself or and not by focusing on getting loans alone. And so that's the area that we need to collaborate on and work more together, joint venture and partnerships. Thank you.
Dr. Farid, your last submission, then we are good to go. Mr. Yofi Grant has said a lot so far, so.
Okay, thank you.
I'll give you just 30 seconds, Mr. Yofi Grant.
Okay, thank you. What I can say or I can add is that listening to the discussions here, we've been focusing on Ghana, Canada. From the AFCFTA perspective, our concept of space should now be reinterpreted so that we can look outside just Ghana for a lot of the solutions that we are looking for. The potential that AFCFTA offers us is one in which the whole of Africa becomes our market space. There's been the issue of lack of market and other things. But so long as we tailor all our solutions to the national option, then we are not able to put in place policies and solutions that even seeks to break the paradigm and to move out more innovatively into the African continent. So I would think that the businesses here should now start looking not in terms of only Ghana as your market, but Africa as your market. Thank you.
Mr. Yofi Grant, Dex, under 30 seconds.
I have no doubts that the opportunities exist either way, and I have absolutely no doubt that partnerships is what is going to unlock many of these opportunities. As we speak, there are over 100 Canadian companies in Africa in the resource extraction and management space. There are only 2 in Ghana currently. And for Ghana being a resource-rich country means that there's significant opportunity that we should seek and join hands to bring value to. So I think I'm leaving that to you as a parting shot, that opportunity exists and we should go all out to ensure that we can bring the Canadian companies who are, especially in the resource management space, because of the question of sustainability, you can partner with them to come to work in Ghana and then the rest of Africa.
All right. So please, can we give a round of applause to our panelists? And I hope you enjoy whatever thing we had here today. So please, we want to take a spot of, how do you call it? Music from the Ghana Dance Ensemble as we take our pictures to end this section. Please, thank you so much for your time and giving us your audience for this. The treasurer of the chamber and then the CEO for Sing Global Travels. Let's welcome him to give us a closing remark. Please, let's resume our seats.
Ladies and gentlemen, as we draw the curtains on the captivating and enlightening 3-hour session, I extend my heartfelt gratitude to the Canada-Ghana Chamber of Commerce for orchestrating such a remarkable event. This gathering has successfully united influential corporate figures, fostering networking and idealization and relaxation. The Canada-Ghana Chamber of Commerce stands as a prominent beacon within the Ghana business landscape, boasting of over 130 active members from diverse sectors, investment and business interactions between Ghana and Canada. We achieve this through unrivaled networking avenues, highlighted visibility, and dedicated advocacy. For those who hold a deep affinity to Canada or maintain business ties with Canadian partners or suppliers, for those aspiring to attend Canadian investor and collaborators, I strongly urge you to consider becoming a member of our chamber. Reach out to the Secretariat without delay and join the dynamic community. The rewards will undoubtedly be substantial. Allow me to briefly recap on some of the things we are taking away today. We're grateful to have our president, Mr. Alex Nolte, tell us about the various opportunities that are here in Ghana. He concluded by saying that SMEs, fintech, and agri-tech are the drivers of the future economy. We had Honorable Nana Ama-Dokua also stressing that for the survival of every business, finance is critical, and that there is the need to create a strong economy by providing accessible grants for SMEs. There are much more in what connects us as a country, Her Excellency Martin Moreau mentioned. And she indicated that there is only 1% in terms of investment from Africa to Canada. I see this as a huge opportunity for most of our businesses here. There's the need to enter that market and do more. Think about how Africa can make itself competitive globally. Mr. Alberto Antonio encouraged us that there's a new era of doing business in Africa. If we want to do business, we need to start looking at home, looking around us, and seeing the opportunities that lie around us. Let us also assess our various businesses and determine what stage of funding there is the need. Apply the right corporate governance practices in our businesses. There are opportunities here, as Mr. Yofi Grant mentioned. Let us start here. Carefully look around you. Your strategic partner could be sitting right next to you or right in this auditorium. One of the things I saw being highlighted by all our guest speakers was that there is the need to form partnerships. And that partnerships should start from here. We deeply want to appreciate all our special guests, Honorable Nana Ama-Dokua Siama Ejei, Deputy Minister of International Trade, Ministry of Trade and Industry. We want to appreciate Her Excellency Martin Moreau, High Commissioner to Canada. We want to appreciate Ms. Abena Amwa, Managing Director of the Ghana Stock Exchange. We want to thank Dr. Efua Asabia Sari, CEO of the Ghana Export Promotion Authority. We want to thank Mr. Alberto Antonio, Senior Advisor from the Secretariat of the African Continental Free Trade. We want to thank Dr. Alfred Kwesi-Atta, National Coordinator of the African Continental Free Trade. We want to thank Mr. Frederick Amo Atakura, Head of Value Change at EcoBank. We want to thank Ni Odoye Yemo, Executive Director of Reality Capital, for coming all the way from Canada to grace our event. A special acknowledgement is due to all the other Canadian companies that have graced us with their participation, traveling from afar to Accra to partake in this occasion. We salute your commitment. Furthermore, our heartfelt appreciation goes to the member companies who just generously sponsored our event, including DI Corp, Rima Systems, Deluxe, DutiLex, Conship, Sing Global Travel, Syria, Joe Braze, One Heart, Netis, Strada, EDM, Vita Tree, Vets Lina, Mosfine Company Limited, and all our media partners. To all of you who came to grace this event, we extend our deepest thanks. We trust that this event has proven valuable in terms of both your time and resources. As you depart from this breakfast gathering, we hope that you've been equipped with fresh ideas to improve you and your businesses, and that you share in the success stories and the outcome derived from this event. In conclusion, let us look forward to reconvening next year for the 4th edition of CEOs Connect. Until then, may you all be blessed abundantly. Thank you.